When I was a couple weeks short of my 70th birthday, I started thinking about my mother's mother, who lived to be 100, and her mother, who lived to be 102, and my father, who lived to be 90, longer than anyone we had ever heard of in his family. I began to think that maybe our generation could be the first to routinely live to be 100. When I talked about this at family dinner one night, my granddaughter, who was 5, said,
"What are you going to do for the next 30 years, Grandpa?"
Hello, I'm Dr. Janet Price.
And I'm Gregg Kaloust. And we are Oldish. And this is our podcast, Oldish.
If you're oldish or know someone who is, please join us every week for conversations amongst ourselves
And our special guests
about what it means to be oldish in the 21st century.
If you ever wonder whether you're getting old, you're oldish. What are you going to do for the next 30 minutes? Hi, I'm Gregg, and I'm oldish.
Hi, I'm Janet, and I'm oldish. Welcome to this episode of our podcast, Oldish, Conversations on Aging in the 21st Century. Hi, Gregg.
Hi, Janet. How are you today?
It's very hot, and I'm trying to stay cool. And I'm thinking about some holidays that just passed. It's about to come, one being Juneteenth, which was a few days ago, and then the 4th of July, which is coming up in a little bit over a week. And what that means for us as oldish people in 2025. I know we talked about Juneteenth at least a year ago. I'm not sure, but it doesn't hurt to bring it up again.
Yes, I think it's a good idea to bring it up. The environment surrounding it is different from what it was. And just as an aside, before we go too far, I always think you're cool.
Me?
Yeah. You said you were trying to be cool. Oh. So I thought you are cool.
Well, thank you.
Maybe you're not. I don't know. If you're really cool, you would have. No.
I know. I'm not doing too well with that one.
Well, it's the heat.
Yes. So a little bit about the history of Juneteenth. It marks the emancipation of enslaved African Americans in the United States. It commemorates June 19th, 1865, when Union soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas, and announced that the Civil War had ended and that enslaved people were free. But this was in accordance with the Emancipation Proclamation that was issued by President Lincoln on January 1st, 1863. So this was 2.5 years later. Slaves in this part of the country had not been told that they were now free. So since then, this day has been special, especially to African Americans, and had been celebrating it each year for all these years. And eventually, some of the states took notice and made statewide declarations that they were going to honor Juneteenth by having it be a holiday. And then it was in 2021, 4 years ago, that Juneteenth was officially recognized as a federal holiday, emphasizing its importance in American history and culture. So that's a little bit of the history of Juneteenth.
It was interesting because there was a long way to go. The slaves had been emancipated 2.5 years earlier, and nobody thought it was a good idea to tell them. That's fairly major. And also the Civil War was over. Lee had surrendered 2 months prior to that. So it still took another 2 months after the war was over for anybody to tell these people. So there was still a long way to go in terms of freedom and equality in that part of the country.
Exactly.
I want to point out also, in terms of oldish relevance, that one of your oldish co-hosts here just did that research about Juneteenth on ChatGPT. And so there, folks, we're not old at all. Janet, all on her own, has discovered the use of ChatGPT to help her figure out what the heck is going on.
Exactly. Yes, I'm very proud of myself. Thank you, Gregg.
Yeah, maybe I should try it. I have no idea what's going on. So I should probably try something that I can speak with authority. We talked a couple of years ago on the 4th of July about people being left out of the Independence Day celebration because on the 4th of July in 1776, there was not an Emancipation Proclamation. It took another almost 100 years for that to take place. And so we have this national celebration of independence without all the people who live here being independent. So Juneteenth isn't exactly our rectification of that or replacement of that. One of the things politically that came up around Juneteenth when I was reading about it and thinking about it last week was that a lot of people on the right, many of the same people who say all lives matter, have said, well, we celebrate everybody's independence on July 4th. Well, no, we don't. And they don't especially. I think it's important to have, that was one of the questions, was why do we have two celebrations of independence? And all these many years later, it's because, first of all, it's not 100% true yet. The way things are going in this country, it's still not 100% true that everybody who lives here is equal. I think that's really important because our country, here's something I hadn't thought of before. Our country itself is actually oldish, and it's going through some oldish creakiness and some dementia, but we didn't give up yet, and we're still, but we're moving more slowly than in the past sometimes, and we're spending a lot of time in fantasies about a past life and so on. So the country is oldish. One of the signs of it is that it still is not egalitarian. Egalitarian, the meaning of the word is that everybody is equal. But I saw a complaint last week that the left is egalitarian and socialist. I don't think you should be complaining about egalitarian. I don't think that's a legitimate complaint. You can say socialist, but that's not true. The history of the word socialism as a derogatory term in U.S. politics relates directly to June 19th, because what happened in the South during Reconstruction is that Black men, not all Black people, but Black men who had previously been enslaved were given the right to vote. And in many cases, what happened was that they would vote with the Republicans, doing things like raising taxes and so on. And in the South, people began to use that term socialist, meaning taking away from the wealthy landowners and the rich white people so that Black people could have schools and roads and police forces and so on, just like the white people did, and that the Black people could have a voice in that. That use of the term socialist was a dog whistle back in those days. And what it really meant was we're afraid that Black people are going to be in charge. And so we have to fight against that. And the term we can use to fight against that is socialist. And when modern people on the right say socialist, that's what they mean. They don't mean Marxist socialists. They don't mean socialists like you see in Scandinavian countries where we're all in it together kind of socialism. What they mean is people of color are trying to take away stuff from us. That's what they mean when they say socialist, which is annoying to say the least.
Well, it's interesting what you're saying about Juneteenth and what it symbolized as different from 1776. And that is both Juneteenth capturing a historical reality of what happened and also being symbolic of how far there is to go. And what you said about white men stopping to think about what is this history? What does it mean to the Black people? And how can those who are not part of that group have compassion and understanding and caring?
It's an important holiday, I'm pretty sure. As an oldish white guy, I had never heard of it until a few years ago. But it's been celebrated all over the country, or in many places in the country, as Liberation Day to a great extent for a really long time. But in the world that I grew up in, white suburbs, we didn't hear about it. It wasn't taught in our schools. It wasn't talked about. It wasn't a federal holiday or a state holiday in Massachusetts where I grew up. So as an oldish person, it's a sign to me that our lives are changing, that our culture is changing. And in our oldishness, there's a bit of panic on the part of the people who are feeling like they are going to be left behind or left out going forward. A lot of what's going on politically is fear of white replacement. There's that great replacement theory that we are going to be, when I say we, that they are afraid that white people are going to be replaced as the dominant race in the culture, without an understanding that there really is no such thing as race, and our culture is indomitable.
Yes, I feel it is such a scary time. It's a scary time for most people for so many reasons. If you're not part of the 1%, it's scary. And then to add on to that fear of not being part of the majority, so being a person of color. And right now in 2025, we really don't know what's going to happen as far as next steps. I heard that our president last week on the 19th said that he thought there were too many national holidays, too many stay-at-home holidays. So I don't know if that was a vague reference that he was going to work to abolish Juneteenth as a holiday, but it is a scary time.
It's a scary time. And I think that is what he meant, is we got to get rid of this thing. You could almost hear the word shiftless in the back of his head. It was more than a dog whistle. And what he did intend to be saying, I'm certain, is we should get rid of this Juneteenth, not that we should get rid of the holidays that he just proposed. The end of World War I, the end of World War II should be national holidays with military parades, that his birthday should be a national holiday. And so he didn't mean that we should eliminate those ones that don't exist at all, but that we should eliminate the one that relates to Black people, and the non-working is code for shiftless. And that's just a horrible, horrible thing. One of thousands of horrible things the man has said. That's high up there, I think.
So I'm glad that you and I get a chance to mention it, because it's certainly something that needs to continue to be a national holiday. As long as that's a national holiday, then I think we can be pretty sure it's going to be talked about in schools, and because they're taking a day off from school. So I'm imagining and assuming the teacher would be talking to the kids about, why are we taking this day off? So that's important.
How did you celebrate Juneteenth?
Well, I'm a little bit embarrassed to say that I worked, but I felt torn. I felt like I could take the day off, and maybe I should take the day off just for the symbolism of that. But because I'm a psychotherapist, I also felt like I wanted to be available for my clients. And I did have one client chastise me and say that I shouldn't be working that day. And I said, yeah, it's a good point.
See you later.
Yeah. So I didn't really do anything other than talk about it with clients. So I did something. What about you?
My family went to the beach and had a barbecue and did some things like that. The national holiday part of it was important because my son-in-law had the day off. My daughter is a school teacher, and they're done for the year anyway. And my grandchildren were done for the year anyway, so that the holiday occurs after school is out, kind of in the same way that the 4th of July does. But that's how we celebrated it. We went to the beach and had some fun.
Sounds like a great way to celebrate.
I'm a little curious. The press didn't cover it. I don't follow the mainstream corporate press much anymore. But I still every day scroll down through YouTube, and the algorithm always shows me ABC and CBS and Fox and all of those. And there wasn't a lot of discussion. I don't remember any headlines saying Happy Juneteenth and so on and so forth. So in a large culture way, large national sell stuff in commercials culture kind of a way, it didn't cross my feed very much. As usual, Heather Cox Richardson's letter to an American was quite thorough about the whole question. And so that was pretty good. That's one of the benefits of being oldish, is that we get to have Heather Cox Richardson in our lives, which is good. She's a treasure. For my money, she's kind of a modern version, the different styles, obviously, but a modern version of Walter Cronkite. That's the news, folks. Once she straight up, here's the news, here's what it means, here's why it means that, and no BS in it to speak of. It's not an exact it's not one for one. And she would blush and deny it probably, but I don't know if she would blush, but she would deny it.
Let me ask you, just so our listeners know, it's Heather Cox Richardson, and do you find her feed on Instagram or Facebook, or where do you follow her?
She has a Substack called Letters from an American. She's a professor of history at Boston College. She lives in Maine. She's a historian whose specialty, until a few years ago when she started paying attention to the politics, was the Civil War. So she knows a lot about the Civil War and speaks very clearly about it. And she has spent a career watching how who we are today developed from then on. And she ties it back further back than that. But her big specialty, it seems, was the Civil War. And she's become one of the main voices of reason here in the 21st century. She came to my attention back during Trump 1.0, and she still has my attention. I read her letter every morning.
Good. Just wanted to be clear with everyone so that anyone who wants to can find her.
Good. Yep, Substack. There you go. There's a lot of good people on Substack, many people who are no longer with the corporate media for one reason or another. People who asked rude questions of our current president and were fired by their corporate owners on the television networks and the Washington Post and the New York Times. Many of those people have migrated over to Substack. It's quite an active place.
Including, for our listeners, Greg, you have a Substack where you post poems and your writings, just for people to know.
Yes. Well, thank you.
Yes. All right. So it was nice to spend a little bit of time together and just remember Juneteenth and what it's about and what it means for us at this moment in time. And ultimately, it means, from my perspective, making sure that we're paying attention to each other and showing kindness and being in it together to get this work done, or we can be equally part of this country together.
Yes. And just to be clear on where I'm coming from about it, Juneteenth is a really valuable holiday. It celebrates something that was certainly in the top 10 most important things that ever happened in our country. And it doesn't take away from or dilute July 4th, Independence Day. It amplifies it. It adds to it. It fills in many of the holes that were left in the Declaration of Independence and the country for its first 60 years.
Yes. Yep.
It's a very important day, and I'm glad that we took a few minutes to commemorate it along with everybody else, even though we're a few days late.
Yes, I agree.
Yes. Well, it's time to go out in the stupid heat, Janet. So it's been nice hanging around with you. You're very cool. So you've cooled me off as you usually do.
Good. Yes, and good luck to you out there in the heat. And we'll do this again sometime, I think.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. We do have a book club episode coming up sometime soon. I'll put that in the show notes. Keep smiling. And don't forget ChatGPT.
I will not. It's my new best friend. Bye, Greg.
Bye, Jen. That's it for now. Thanks for listening. Co-host Dr. Janet Price and I had a great time learning and sharing about Juneteenth. So did guest host ChatGPT, apparently. Next up, 4th of July. And it would be a good idea to start reading Our Souls at Night by Kent Haruf, our next Oldish book club selection. You can find it in your local or online library and in our online bookstore at www.bookshop.org/shop/Oldish. You can leave comments or requests for topics or guests on this or other episodes at www.oldish.me. There's a link there, too, if you've wondered how you can help support our podcast. If you like what you heard today, please tell a friend and rate and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts.